お前はもう死んでいる。何？
Greetings, fellow Genshin addicts. Welcome to this month's Abyss Hell. In what I believe to be the hardest philosophical content of the year, we'll be dealing with not 1, not 3, but 5 boss fights. To top it off, Chamber 1 also contains our beloved consecrated beasts, and they are not the only wave of enemies to deal with. For the gameplay footage, I'll be showing a long-term free-to-play account that has been collecting dust since the release of Netland. As usual, we'll focus on mechanics, however, due to unique boss traits, life will be way easier with specific characters. If you have not invested much in the game, odds are that you will need to reset and use different teams for each chamber. The first half of Chamber 1 has a total of 3 waves with 2 enemies each. The very first 2 enemies are the fluid avatars of lava, which have increased power resistance and are constantly inflicted with power status. Due to the nature of burrowing underground and appearing at random places on the map, the easiest way to deal with them is to position yourself at the left edge of the map and use electro damage to constantly stagger them with the overload reaction. Reset if the positioning sucks, as every second counts. Next up, we have the 2 Aromat Summoners, Dendro on the left and Pyro on the right. Both immediately start in an enhanced state, which gives them 50% increased resistance to all damage. Summons appear shortly after they spawn, and you will need to defeat them to stun and remove the enhanced states. The reason why we approach from the left is that from experience, this brings both summons closer to the Dendro Aramite, which results in better grouping and damage dealing potential, as opposed to approaching from the right, where summons usually end up getting split up. Now get ready for pain and getting pushed around, because in the third wave we have 2 consecrated beasts, 1 Pyro and 1 Hydro. Both have increased resistances, especially for the corresponding element and partial freeze immunity. In other videos, we talk about stunning them with a phagocytic block that spawns with certain particular attack patterns that they use. However, there's no time to wait here. Fight at the back edge of the map, do your best to hit both together and not die. Lay on elemental damage as much as you can. If available, shielders will help here as they utilize the Blessing of the Abyssal Moon, which deals true damage of around 20k damage every 5 seconds that ignores resistances. In my playthrough, I don't use any shielder, instead exploiting a healer Bennett and Fiorina to survive and deal more damage. Your mileage may vary depending on the characters you have developed. In the second half of Chamber 1, 2 Geovishap spawn with increased elemental resistance to geo damage. At 40% health, one absorbs Hydro while the other absorbs Electro, which grants them a small bonus resistance to the corresponding elemental damage. Simply let them come to you and defeat them accordingly. Chamber 1 ends with the first boss of Floor 12, an Electro-infused Primal Geovishap. It initially spawns with massive resistances which last for about 10 seconds. Use this downtime to prepare your skills and get energy back. During the fight, position yourselves to the flanks of the Vishap and avoid standing directly in front as his breath attack hurts. A shielder or a Geo unit with Crystallize will work great here for his Primordial Shower attack. An Electro or Geo shield that fully absorbs the damage counters and deals 15% max HP plus a stagger to the Vishap. The counter also reduces the resistances for a brief moment. Shields of other elements only deal 5% damage and do not counter him. In my experience, Chamber 1 was the hardest to 3 stars. Feel free to focus on Chambers 2 and 3 as you can revisit Chamber 1 easily on a different day with different buffs without having to replay other chambers. The first half of Chamber 2 debuts the Gold Flame Kukusaur Tyrant boss. Just like the Primal Geovishap, it spawns in with massive resistances and immediately enters the Golden Flame status, which makes it immune to all damage. Auto-targeting from Fiorina's skill shines here. Chaska or Hydro Ball users will work well, while Electro is the second most effective. If you don't have those characters, the Kukusaur spawns in 2 Flame Wind Feathers at ground level. Destroying both will bring it to lower altitude, where it can be targeted by melee or catalyst attacks. Xingqiu's Elemental Burst also works well for targeting the Flame Wind Feather. However, this means that you need to start the fight with nearly full elemental energy, as there is no way of obtaining energy after the Kukusaur takes off from the ground. After the expiry of the Golden Flame status, the Kukusaur Tyrant poses little threat on the ground. Just make sure to defeat it before it can take off again. Removing the Golden Flame status is essential for 3 stars, as the alternative is to waste 45 seconds, which is pretty costly for the 3 minutes that you have. The next half debuts yet another Netlands boss, the Tenebrous Papilla. It immediately enters the Void Ward state, which you must target with elemental attacks. Night Soul elemental attacks from Netland characters are 3 times as effective. You have approximately 15 seconds to break the Void Ward. Auroron and Kinich shine here, but if unavailable, exploit the burning and electro charge reactions. You must prioritize taking down the ward, otherwise huge damage is taken. Immediately after the Void Ward breaks, the boss loses all resistance to damage. Utilize this damage window to put in as much as you can. Clearing the ward also permanently reduces resistances by half after recovering from its stun, which makes the boss easier to eliminate. This is a DPS check. The recovery phase lasts for about 90 seconds, otherwise a second Void Ward comes up. This boss hits hard. It has a unique mechanic of attrition, where many attacks cost percentage of maximum HP after a brief delay. This debuff bypasses shields entirely. It also phases in and out while transforming the various bosses, mimicking their attacks. This makes it unpredictable while also difficult to target. However, as long as you have brought the relevant characters to clear the mechanics for both the Kukusor Tyrant on the previous half and the current mechanics for the Tenebrous Papilla, the damage check here is not as demanding compared to Chamber 1. Hence, prioritize avoiding attacks and staying alive. Chamber 3 begins with the penultimate boss of this round's Floor 12 Abyss, Inazuma's Golden Wolflord. It spawns in with increased resistance for the first few seconds of the fight, which allows you to regain energy for your characters. Because it spends much of its time flying around out of reach of regular melee and catalyst characters, it can be targeted with both characters to deal some chip damage. At 70% HP, the Golden Wolflord enters the Elemental Devourer state, but on one condition. The condition is that it must first finish its existing attack pattern. Hence, one strategy intentionally leaves the Wolflord at more than 70% HP in its first attack, and then completely obliterates him in the second attack before he can enter the state. You can note the approximate position of the health threshold relative to the title text, which is just slightly to the left of the capital R. Since most users won't have that kind of damage potential, your strategy has to account for the intended mechanics. In the Devourer state, the Wolflord has a shield impervious to all forms of damage. 3 Rifthound Scouts spawn evenly distributed on the outer arena. Geo attacks on the Scouts are required to destroy the shield and render the Wolflord vulnerable to attacks. When it comes to application of Geo damage, Ningguang is second to none as she is the only Geo catalyst currently in the game. The free-to-play option would probably involve something along the lines of Geo, MC and Noel together, however, taking up 2 character slots on the team can be punishing for a team build. Once the shield is down, the Wolflord is stunned for an extended state, which should allow him to be defeated easily. The only other mechanic to look out for is the Coercion status effect from his attacks, which can bleed out on-field characters. Having a healer on the team, or dodging or iframing through most attacks should solve all survivability issues. At the end of Floor 12 is the least mechanically complicated boss, the Aeon Blight Drake. Just like the rest, it has increased resistances on spawn. The Drake immediately takes off at the beginning of the fight. Use uncharged bow attacks on the thrusters on both sides of its back, or to break glowing weak points to keep it grounded. Some niche tactics employ precise targeting from Layla's shield skills. If you'd like to see that, I have linked another video with timestamp in the comments and description below. The Drake can also be stunned on the ground when he exposes the weak point on his head. If the fight drags on long enough without stunning the Drake, you may see it absorb the element it has taken the most damage of, granting it an additional 60% resistance. Hence, having a bow character is essential here. Otherwise, the fight is relatively straightforward. If you've made it this far, thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed my content. I hope that the content proves useful to you. Happy hunting in Abyss, and don't give up if you want the Primogems. For some sample Abyss clears, check out the description and pinned comments below.